Okay, and about public spaces, every one of you, I think, know what is public spaces, and I don't need to tell what it's about. And most of you, I think, know why it is important to measure public spaces and why it's so important to know with what thing you work and what is it. And uh, I uh, I tell a few words about myself. I'm the founder of Studio Crossroads. It's like a civil initiative which works with public spaces, and my cat helped me with this webinar. Yeah, and we work with public spaces, and we develop this topic in Ukraine. We developed this field. We this year we wrote with some with other authors the guide of how to explore, how to measure public spaces, and for Ukrainian team, it will be easier to get it because it's free and it's available in electronic form, but it's only in Ukrainian. So for Berlin team, it will be not so easy. But I hope my webinar will help you a little understand how to work with this, how to deal with these topics and with these things. Okay, I will start from the joke because jokes is a better start of the presentation. It was much better if I joked not in 20 minutes after start of the presentation, but it's okay. Yeah. So I really was in vacation and I doing my all my stuff during looking on the mountains, and it was very beautiful, but it was very nice. And about public spaces, actually, there is three dimensions in which you can understand what public spaces what public spaces is, and it can explain, it helps you to understand what parameters you will work when you start to explore it. And one of that is economy, another is space, and third is people. And I will now click. And economy is such parameter which shows how some changes impacts on the local economy on the local businesses. When you create some project, when you create public space, or when you change it, it always influence not only people, it always influence on the economical relationship. When you decide to, I don't know, to make some water garden, or you decide to make some more safe crossroads, it can influence in some way on the peoples, on the businesses surrounding this place. First, the studies, I'm not sure that it was first, but when I wrote this part in my guide, I based on researches in New York City, which was held by Department of Transportation of New York. And if you know such book, Fight for the City, author Janet Sadiq Khan, she was a commissioner of transportation in New York, and she told how to measure these things and why economy is so important. Because when you speak with some I don't know, when you speak with some authorities, you can show that we have such results on local businesses, and local businesses have started to earn more money, for example, or they have a lot more participants, they have more customers, which brings more taxes to the local budgets, and which brings more, I don't know, more money for these people, which can improve your economy in some local way. And that's why economic study is really important. And then I will tell you how to how to conduct them. The next dimension is space. Space is a dimension about spatial and physical parameters of the place with which you work. It's such dimensions that characterize, is it place comfortable or not? Is it place has high quality or not, or is this place, I don't know, safe for people. It's not about social. It's not about some people's perception of the space. It's more about some physical and spatial parameters when you understand that this place is good because of technical characteristics, not of your perception, but of some parameters which are objective. And the last dimension is people, and this is about social, and this is about people's perception and the thing about who is your stakeholders. It's like when you start some project. If you're a project manager, you always work with stakeholders. You always work with some people who will be engaged in this project or who will be influenced by this project. And this part of dimension is about such things, about who will be your stakeholders and what they need and how they use the space. So next part, economy. I have told you a little why this part is so important, because when you understand how your changes will impact some budget of some organizations or local businesses, you can talk with authorities or with social activists or with people just who or with participants who using your public space. You can talk with some money parameters, and it's always a good argument, because you can't measure and you can't tell about safety in such parameters that will be perfect for everyone. And economy is parameters that perfect for everyone. Everyone argues that everyone agreed that if you earn more money, it's good. If you can save some money in your budget, if you are some organization, it's good. There are two aspects of the economy. It's reconstruction or creation of some public spaces and maintenance. You need to understand that when you trying to measure these parameters, they are different, because some points of creation and reconstruction, they are useful only in this part, in this field, in these projects, when you create something. And some parameters of maintenance, they are actual only for maintenance when you're trying to keep everything you create for the long period of time. And when you have creation or construction, you have not you have costs that that appears only when you do this project. And when you have maintenance, you have costs that will be for a long period of time, like cleaning of the place, or like keeping the lighting, or like I don't know what more, like some greening and watering this greening, and that's things that will be for a long period of time. And when you measure your project, you can do measures in both ways, in what budget of the creation or construction, and how it will cost, and what is the economy of maintenance. And there are things that you can measure, and is how these things, how your project will impact the economy of local businesses, in the third thing that I haven't included in this slide. When we speak about economy, we not speak only about money. Money is only one part. Next, I will show you one example where you understand why it's not only money. And it's also about time, it's also about knowledge, and it's also about materials. All these things you need to include in your budget. All these things you need to include in your measurement if you want to conduct measurement about economy. Because not only money, people and organizations spend not only money when they create some place, and not only money when they maintain this place. Sometimes they can grow in some vegetation on their own lands and then plant them in the city. But this money spent for this time spent for this growing and these materials which they use will also be the part of the budget of the maintenance, and it's important to understand. And that is the funny example. Yeah, there was exhibition of flowers in one of the Kiev gardens, and this exhibition looks like this. I'm not sure that is beautiful, but some people like it. And when there was discussion on Facebook, how much does it cost? The head of the organization which created this exhibition told that it was only that all plants they grew by their organization, not by someone. They don't buy it, didn't buy it. They grew it. They grew it themselves. And then after this discussion, I understand that this plant, which they grew themselves, they also spent money and time and knowledge of people. They spent some salary to grow these plants and to see. I see chat. I want to ask you to turn off phones. Sorry. Yeah, they spent money and knowledge to grow this, and they spent some electricity to grow these plants, and they spent some time to plant them, and this salary also include in the costs of the maintenance of this project or creation of this project, and that's why you cannot exclude them. And in Ukraine, I don't know how in Berlin, but in Ukraine, a lot of people think that when you start to understand trying to create a budget, you think only about direct costs, but you have a lot of indirect costs like electricity or like I don't know, some professionals which you need to engage in the project, and you need to understand. You need to sorry. You need to think about this cost. And I will return to the previous slide. I will return to the previous slide to explain something to this slide with economy, to explain something about New York and New York measurements that was made. They measured only local economy, and when they measured local economy, they take one street where they made some improvements, and they find taxes and tax payers on the street, and they work with financial department and find taxpayers on the street. And after that, they measured the taxes income for the 3 months, I think, before creation of this improvement, before making of this improvement, and 3 months after that. And they take also measurements for the whole district to understand if it's enough, if this grows or I forgot the words. Sorry. To understand if this growth or the loss of income was not only this street, but in the whole district, they take the measurements for the whole district, they take the measurements for the street they improve, and they take the measurements for some control street, where they can understand that that this improvement of taxes, and it's more taxes because the improvement and not just in the whole district. And if you do such measurements, you need to have such control groups to control that your improvement really influence the local businesses. Yeah. Now I want from you, you have such options like annotate. You can to put some text on the screen. You see, like I don't know, right? Hi. Yeah, you can put some text on the screen, and I ask you to think about the spaces with which you will work during this project, about the yard in Chernihiv for Ukrainian team. Yeah, nice. And about the yard in Berlin with which you will work, and think about what economic benefits can your changes bring to this space, and how you can measure it.
I think it's hard to think of economic benefits in our yard because our goal is not to make money with the organization, even though money is important for us in order to make our projects, but it's not like a company that we want to gain more money. I think when questions about money in our project are more like, how can we help people in our neighborhood that don't have enough money for schooling or for daycare for their children to get access to these programs without spending a lot of money.
Yeah, and when we think about money, we most think about who will earn it, but we don't think about who can save money because of our project. If you think in that way, maybe you will find some new points about economy measurements in your project. And you can think about who will earn money. Maybe you have some local cafeteria, or I don't know, some some small shop with some craft things, or not actually craft things, just things. And if you have some shops and you will improve your public space, which gather more people in the space, you can improve this. You can make more money for this shop, and it's also a benefit, and it's also good for, because local businesses, they also improve space when they develop their business, and when they become more sustainable and stable. It's good for everyone, and it's good for the district. And so we can think not about our organization when we work on the project. We can think about who can save the money because of our project, or as organization who can earn more money because of our project. So
Oksana, one more task for you. Now you are host of our webinar, so please suggest other participants. We have a waiters list. Click participants, and you will see that not all. Thank you.
Yeah, I see everyone.
On the top of a list must be Marina Zabara.
I didn't see her actually. I will try to find like waiting list. I see the list of participants, but I really don't see Marina and her application for the answer. Okay, I think 5 minutes has gone. Yeah, yeah. So I see some answers, and I really like your engagement in this task. Okay. So let's start from the German team, just because they are from the left, the left side. Okay, accessibility and registration. Can someone who wrote this accessibility and registration explain me what is registration? What you mean on this? I understand the translation, but I really not actually understand what you're talking about in our topic.
I was thinking of the way we get money in Germany is that we apply for funding through projects, and then we have to do something with the money. And the way we work here at Treffpunkt Heinrichstraße is that we think, how can we redistribute the money to other people, so that we as an organization don't keep the money, but we try to share it with other actors in our neighborhood. For example, we do not buy from Amazon or other big companies. We try to, if we need to buy items or other things, to buy it here in our neighborhood and to keep the money in our street.
Oh, it's a really great idea. I even don't think about this. I didn't think about this even when I wrote this as a guide. I didn't think about this, and it's a really cool idea. It's great and awesome. And really, when you work with a project and when you involve local businesses and buy some stuff from them, you really improve their local economy, not some big corporations, but these small businesses which bring so important benefits to the district with which you work. Okay, and the other question, can we think how we can maybe, no, we think, I know, I asked the question and then I understand that I know the answer. Can you think how we can measure it, how we can measure this impact about redistribution? Daniel, I think it's a question to you. Sorry, Daniel, we didn't hear you.
No, I'm still thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would see if this is, if we keep the goal by having a list of what did we buy in the end, and that we see that we manage actually to only buy from locals. And if not, why didn't we, aren't there any stores that, for example, sell bananas? If we wanted bananas, of course we can buy here bananas, but just for example, and then to, I don't know, maybe see if there are people in here who want to start new businesses that provide us with what we can't buy here.
Yeah. Yeah, great. It's a great indicator and it's a great way to measure it. Okay, perfect. The other indicator was accessibility, and there I have a question because it's a benefit. It's of course a benefit, but I'm not sure it's an economic benefit. How accessibility can impact on economics, on economy. Sorry.
When I thought of accessibility, I was thinking about, again, people who participate in our programs, that is accessible for everyone, no matter if they have a lot of money in their pocket or not. and by having accessible offers, for example, in daycare, or we were doing masks during Corona and gave them away for free, we improved the economic conditions of some people here in our neighborhood, because otherwise they would need to buy it themselves, and we help them to keep the costs low for some points. So this is what I meant with accessibility, to make everything that we have in our garden accessible for people, no matter if they're rich or poor. Everyone should be able to participate in our project.
Great. And when you talk about it and about this way of measuring, I understand that accessibility can also be measured as equality, and you can measure like which groups and in which way get this access to some stuff they can't buy themselves. Okay. And what is next thing? I think it's in German. Yeah.
Yeah. Börse is a German word for market. It's hard to translate this term. It is, if we have a good economy at our NGO here in Berlin, we have the possibility to share contacts into economy with people who live in here. So it's easy for us to be kind of like a job market for people in our neighborhood, because we can connect them to other people. And this is something that is important in our neighborhood, because a lot of people come and visit us, and they also visit this place because they seek jobs, for example. And they would start talking in our yard about what they heard, where people are looking for other people to employ. And of course, we can also employ if we have money for other people to pay them. So
Great.
Economic benefits are nice in our yard, because we can actually help people to find employment.
Yeah, that's really a great indicator, and you really can measure it, and you really can understand. It might be a little bit difficult to measure these connections and to measure this impact. But I think you can think about it, and you can think about more clear and more direct indicators which help you measure this stuff on the start of the project and on the end of the project to see some changes. Is there anyone who present from the Berlin team else except Daniel, who want to share some thoughts about economic benefits? I think I see Katarina, I see Kai, but I'm not sure they are with us. Okay, let's go to Ukrainian team and let's talk about benefits, economic benefits from Ukrainian position. The attractiveness of area. Okay, who wrote this?
It was my point, and when I wrote this, I mean that in Chernihiv we have a very interesting case because of 2 points. First point is that our public space is not exactly a public space yet, but we want to prepare it for opening, and it will be a new place for use in the center of the city. And previously it was like a old backyard with many of garbage, and it wasn't previous holders do not use it like a public space in general. It was like a storage of some stuff, and that's all. And after our short and little changing, I feel like the attractiveness of this area is rising up, and even some of my friends said few times that they want to live closely to this place because we already opened the sorting station, we already preparing the urban garden there, and we have many of ideas for next steps, and many of you, many of city activists already shared with me some ideas that it will be nice to live more closely on this place. And I think that not only us thinking in this way, I think that after implementing some changing and some powerful changes for next period, the attractions of this area can be raised. And maybe a very interesting point to gentrification, because I think that some owners of flats and some local shops, local restaurants can raise also the prices and so on. But I think that for the local economy, it's a good point, but also we can discuss it. Not not every time the rising of prices is a good thing for citizens, for example, but for businesses, maybe it is a good point. It was my idea about.
Can I ask a question?
Benefits.
Yeah, of course.
How does it work for Economisto? Do you get your money mostly from public funding, or is it like private donors that share money with Economisto? Like, how do you finance yourself?
Yes, unfortunately, in Ukraine, our NGOs cannot get money from the government, for example. We can't get money from the municipality of about general government, for example. On our case, we're just looking for some donors. For example, this project was founded by the EVZ German Foundation and the Ministry of Foreign of Germany, and we was trying to prepare some finance from different points, but of course the budget of European support for Ukraine is much bigger than we can get from the other citizens or other Ukrainians, for example. Did I answer your question, Daniel?
Yes, it's a huge difference apparently to Germany, because here it is not common for NGOs, at least if they are small, to get money from private persons or from companies. Small NGOs usually get funded from the state, and it's more easy to get state funding than to get private donors.
Okay, I want to return about to attractiveness of area. It's really good idea because when I told you about measurements in New York, there was one criteria of improvement of how public space improve local economy. They were talking about rent and rent raise for the some commercial areas and for the private apartments, and this is one. It was one of the criteria which can which can be impacted by the changes you bring to the space. And sometimes it can be hard to measure it because a lot of things impact on the such points, and not sometimes it's hard to find this information. But I think now in the period of internet, you have a lot of data that you can use to measure these things, and it's really good criteria. Okay, next one from Ukrainian team. When we make yard of youth center more public, it may help to take government's attention to the space, and maybe they will restore restore the walls of building of the youth center. Which criteria it was?
That was my comment.
Okay.
Okay, let me explain something about this link. When we met last time in the Yard of Youth Center, I heard an idea that we can make this place more public, and some people from the other cities and maybe countries will will visit us. And I thought that this is a good idea. Maybe even our governors, I mean local governors, will take attention to this place. And oh, I started from not from the right part. There's a problem that building of youth center is very old, and there was some restoration works from the face part of the building, but inside of the yard you can bring or take bricks from the wall with your bare hands without efforts. So this is a problem for me, and I think that if our governors will take more attention to this place, when people will make them to look at this place more carefully. Maybe will they get some money? Maybe this, youth center will get some money to handle with these problems, because it's very nice building, old, beautiful, and this is very terrible to look how it can demolish one day. Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to tell you. So if some of our participants have any questions, you can ask.
I have maybe not a question, more comment about my first thought when I think about public spaces, about this yard on the youth center. I thought how our improvements can influence this youth center, and it can bring more attention, not only from governors. I really don't know what the center do, but maybe they will have more participants, more people who will visit the center or engage in some way in the activities which the center can propose to the visitors. And I want to tell you about governments. When you measure some economic criteria, try to think only about things you can really influence, because sometimes in my practice I met a lot that governance very passive structures, and they they're too passive and too they don't take changes just because it's a good idea. Sometimes you need to push them to make some changes and to push them to give some more money for some places. Maybe you can, by this project, we can bring some attention, but I I wouldn't be wrote these like economic indicators maybe, because it a lot depends not of yours things you do, of the things you do. It depends a lot of the governors and the people who work in these governments. So it's a good idea to measure some criteria of economic development of the youth center, but maybe not from the point of view of governance.
Okay, I totally agree with you. So, as you told, this is just idea.
Yeah, of
It
course.
may work out, may
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So, this is
You
all
are
an idea.
You are absolutely right. Every comment, everything I say, everything I tell you, not because you are right or you are wrong. It's because this is a discussion that we need to find more ideas and more to clarify our understanding of economic criteria. So
Of course.
next one is the yard can easily become a social magnet for young people or otherwise lack public spaces for useful activities. Who wrote this
That was
comment?
mine. That was mine.
Okay, great, Stanislav.
Well, from what I understand, like if we take the garden of the youth center in Chernihiv, basically, despite the fact that the youth center is called a youth center, there are not so many activities going on there for the youth. Even if we don't take the coronavirus into account and the quarantine measures, there is not much going on there. So in my opinion, if we revitalize the garden, it may become one of very few public spaces which are suitable for the kids and the youth. And there are like two side notes to this. One of them is that in a short term, those people are well, quite generous money spenders, because before the youngsters start making money, they spend their parents' money quite easily, and this can be a nice support for local businesses. And as we know, like as the Ukrainian group knows, there are like coffee shops in the youth center, and because it is located so closely to the central square of the city, those potential visitors can bring more money to the nearby shops and vendors. And there is a long-lasting effect to this as well, because of the lack of public spaces for young people, they tend to spend their time doing some bullshit, and because of that, as an end effect, we lose people who can become, potential leaders and activists, whatever, politicians, private entrepreneurs, and so on. And by creating a space like that for the youth, we can basically invest into nurturing further generations of active citizens who will definitely influence the economy in a positive way. And the next comment which you see on the screen is also mine, that the space can become a venue for cultural events. And this is also something that is that can be very positive for the city. Next to the youth center, just across the square, we have a place called the green scene, or the green stage, Zelena Scena. And the green stage is basically like a public stage for concerts. And as all of the Ukrainian participants know, this place attracts, when there are concerts going on, this place attracts hundreds and hundreds of people and different vendors, and then the small and middle-sized entrepreneurs. And the youth garden can become a place with the exact same purpose and the exact same mission, basically, to bring together different kinds of people and to host cultural events, which can at the same time be used for like collecting money for social initiatives, for crowdfunding, and many other things. So yeah, that was my point.
Great, it's really awesome and very I forgot the word. It's very correct idea, and the idea which have strong connection with the reality and the local situation, and it's cool. It's really awesome. Okay, and I really like this idea. I hope we use it in maybe our workshop or for the researches of economic benefits and for this year. I want to finish a little this part of the topic about economy, and to make like some summary for this part about when you measure economic benefits, when you measure everything in your project, you need be very clear, and you need to understand where the borders of your measurements. You have time borders, you have start of the measurement, and you have end of the measurement. They not only the same as the whole project. You can measure some months or years before, or collect data for years before or months before, and you can collect data some period after the end of the project. So you can clearly understand these borders. Another border is what you measure. If you talk about local authority, if you talk about local economy, be just very concrete. Find some restaurants, I think, or some not city centers, but like youth center or some points of local businesses around the space with which you work, and because in this way you can define these borders and understand which local businesses cannot be influenced by the project, and you can be very concrete in this thing. And okay, and when you measure it, you need to think about the space. And the last point is we can build this connection between economy and some things like sociability or like accessibility or like local governance. It's easy to build these connections, but you need to be in the borders of your economic measurements and not go everywhere, because a lot of things you can measure, you can take that this is economic measurements. Like if someone an architecture, someone can tell you that drawing, I don't know, like drawing a dog house, it's an architecture work. Yeah, but it's in some ways architecture work, because you need to draw some, to design something, and you need to do measurements, and you need to draw how the parameters of this house, but it's not about architecture. And in the same way is here, when you speak about economic measurements, you need to clarify it for yourself that this is a border of economic measurement, and this part is about sociability, this part about people, this part about space. Try not to mix them, and try to create these, I think, maybe borders in your head to understand and to clarify it for you what is the economic measurements. I tried to tell you a little, but I think you will think about this more, and you will find your own borders. So I will I'm not sure that I can clear all your comments.
Yes. Yes. The commenters must push clean button to clean the screen.
Ha! I find it.
Oh,
Great.
super.
I
Go on.
find it. I clear all comments. So we can move forward, and speak about people. People is very important part of your measurements, of your understanding of the public space with which you work. My point of view is like point of view of project manager, because I'm more project manager than sociologist, and I think about people like about stakeholders. You can use this point of view, or you can find your own and find some sociological point of view and some sociological stuff and articles which can bring you understanding how to measure from this point of view. But I will tell you about project manager and about project management and the aspects and about stakeholders. You know, stakeholders, it's people who can influence the project or can be influenced by the project. So not only people who take part in the realization and in this improvement, but all people who use the space now, all people who can potentially use the space, and also people who use surrounding space. And this is 3 questions I wrote on the screen, on the presentation, on the slide. And this is 3 questions answering which you can understand who is your stakeholders. For example, you have this youth center in Chernihiv. You can find all surrounding places, and to see you have a park. You have a people who use this park. Maybe they don't see or don't use this backyard of youth center because they don't know about it, or it doesn't matter really why they don't use. But you know that this is your potential stakeholders, because if you show this way and show the possibility how they can use this backyard of youth center, they will be your stakeholders. So you need to take them into account when you measure and when you think about your public space. Then who use the space now? In youth center, I will talk about youth center because I have more information about it. Sorry, I hope in the end I will know more information about Berlin Group and about their yard. So, for example, I will use just youth center. So for now, they have this sorting station with the garbage, and now people who came to the station, they are stakeholders. Also, you have the organization which is youth center their own, and they are also stakeholders because this backyard they use for saving some stuff, or I don't know, just maybe they smoke on the backyard, and they are also stakeholders. Yeah, I see Sergey agree with me. I think they smoke there. Yeah, and they are also stakeholders. And when you need to take them into account, because maybe they don't have a lot of influence on the project, but they can be agree or disagree, and they can make some proposition to your project, and or I don't know, or be your contra in this project. So you need to take them into account. And the people who use surrounded spaces, it's like on the youth center, there is a restaurant near this space, near the youth center, and near this backyard. And some people can even can think about this backyard like I don't know, like storage of some stuff. Or some people from the restaurant, the owner of the restaurant, can think about the public space, this public space or future public space, like some storage, and use them for its own garbage. And they also your stakeholders, because in your project you need to think about their interests and their needs and how your project will influence their needs. So next part, when you understand who is your stakeholders, you can understand how how they use the space. I have told you a little examples how people can use the space, and in youth center they even don't use the space because most of them even didn't know that there is some public space on the backyard. But you can also measure how they use surrounding space and also notate it and to understand maybe which activities can be interesting for them in this backyard or in the yard or other public space you measure. So next one is how your stakeholders perceive the space. Maybe it's the most hard thing because first of all you need to talk with people. Actually, it's not always easy to talk with people because not everyone wants to speak with you, and not everyone wants to tell you their real perceptions, their real feelings. Sometimes they even don't know or don't think about these feelings before you ask. And to understand how they perceive space, you need to make some poll to take them their opinions. It can be online or offline. You can take it for a long period of time or short period of time. It's up to you. But this perception, it's very important because when you understand how they perceive it, you can understand what things you can improve or what things they don't have in this space. And when you measure how stakeholders use the space, you also can add here what things or what stuff or what amenities they need in the space to use it more or to use it just for the first time. So it's a first thing I didn't wrote about what your stakeholders need in the public space. Yeah, and this is a power and interest grid. It's like very easy matrix. When you understand the whole pool of your stakeholders, the whole groups, you can divide them into some categories or into some groups, like people like children, or like youth, or like people with dogs who want to play somewhere with their dogs, or like people who smoke on the backyard of youth center. They also can be your group. You can divide them anyway, in any way you are comfortable. And when you divide these your stakeholders in groups, or if you have not a big list of stakeholders, you need to put them in this matrix of power and interest. And this zone where we have two circles, two dots, it's like you see this group is for one who have high interest but low power. I even can write it to yeah. I will mix my presentation. Yep. Yeah. Here we have low power, and in this, and here we have high power. And the same is in interest. Down we have low interest. And here we have high interest. Yep. High. So when you divide your stakeholders into the categories, you need to divide them into this low power interest grid, and you put any category in the matrix according to the degree of interest and degree of power. People who or categories of group of stakeholders who are there in this point, in this, draw, there you can see people or categories of your stakeholders who have low power and high interest. They can influence not a lot on your project but they can be very active because they have a lot of interest and they care a lot of this project and the way this project can move. So you need to speak with them. You need to clarify for them how project will influence the space and what you want to do, because in some way they can also influence on your project if they come, I don't know, if they group with each other and try to do some contra actions to your project. And here, this group is one of the most important because they have high interest and high power. This is the most important group of your stakeholders. You need to talk a lot with them. You need to negotiate the stuff you want to do with your project, and they, like in youth center, there can be the head of this youth center, or it can be the owner of the land on which you want to do something, and you need to communicate a lot with them. Here, there's no one on my matrix, but it can, some people can be there. These are people who have low interest and low power. They really don't interested in your project, and it will influence not a lot on them. And you just need monitoring them and understand their feelings and how it's changed to the project. So because in some ways they can become just a second. Sorry, it's just, yep. They can conduct they can resist your project. Oh yeah, I find this word, sorry. They can resist your project, or if you don't tell them what is it, if you don't monitor them, they can move to another group and start to resist your project. And here you have people with high power but low interest. They're not really interested in your project. They don't think, and they think anything. They think nothing about this project. But they have a lot of power. So you need to think about them, to communicate with them, need to control how they, what they think and what they feel about your project. And this is very useful grid to know who is your stakeholders and to know how they can impact on your project. Yep, clear. Oh, okay. And then we have also interactive work, and we have such a drawing. I hope you see it well. It's very interactive because they have a lot of group people here, and you can, our task is to find different groups on this photo, on this drawing, on this image, and to write or to tell which groups of stakeholders you can find here. Like, I think we can think about it for few minutes and then turn off your microphone or turn off your video, and I will see that you want to tell, and we will discuss it. I think it will be a very short task.
I think it's better to speak, not to waste time on
Yeah.
comments, because it's not very easily to comment in the Zoom.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I have one question. Do we see like a usual street, or what the space we're discussing now? It's just a example of a street, yes?
Yeah, it's example of a street. It's actually a drawing from NACTO guide. They create drawings and guidelines for for authorities and for governors how to design streets to be safe, to be comfortable for people, for children, for different groups. So this is a drawing for such guide. Who want to tell? I really want to hear someone who didn't take part in previous task and previous discussion. If any one of you is here, I hope to hear you now. Anyone? Okay, it's a little bit
I
hard.
received few comments that not everybody can use phones and cameras. Maybe it is the reason why we are speaking not in the whole group, but only few participants.
Okay, okay. So
I see here many pedestrians. Also, I see car drivers. Also, I see a nice bike line with many of bicycles. I see young families, some small place for kids on the sidewalk, also dog keepers here. Also here is a bus stop and a public transport also. Of course, residents maybe, because here is a high-star building with many of residents. So also I think that it is a European street, so there must be an active first floor with small businesses maybe.
Can I help you a bit?
Of course,
Can I help
of
you a
course.
bit? The people with disabilities, of course, we can see on this picture, and yeah, and mothers with this child wheel or child chair across the road. So it's, yes, a specific category of stakeholders. It's always specific.
Someone else? Daniel, Kai, Dmitro, Rita, Stanislav, have you returned to us?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Can you add some group of stakeholders on this photo?
Somebody? Did we miss somebody?
Oh, maybe a homeless person on the corner.
Oh, yeah. Even I haven't see it. Great. It's a really great comment. I also see one pregnant woman. So I think they are different group from parents with children. And actually, Actually, I think it's the most groups. I even see like some local stores and yeah. And so when you see
Did we
all this,
did we mention before senior people?
no, actually no.
So we can add one category more.
Yeah, yeah. And you see that we can combine all these people in some categories, like pedestrians, like people who rode public transportation, or public transportation, or private cars, or people just, and we can divide them by mobility criteria. We can divide them by criteria of age, or by criteria of family or kids stuff, or we can divide them by things they do on the place, like people who are sitting on the benches, or like people who are sitting at the cafe, or just walking or shopping, or I don't know, playing like kids. And all these things and all these categories you can use when you're trying to understand your stakeholders, and you can make different categorization which will be more comfortable to you in your project, and which will give you more information for your further further researches, and maybe for further design of the space. So okay, thank you everyone for the involvement in this task. And then we came to the we came to the last part, to the last dimension of our sorry, the last dimension of our measurements. It's space. There are 2 points of view. First one, it's point of view created by me, because when I thought about another, there are a lot of parameters how you can measure the space. You can think about comfort, you can think about I don't know, transportation infrastructure, you can think about like amenities or some greening, and all this stuff. It's your spatial parameters, and how to combine them into groups, it's up to you. Maybe there are some point of views like canonic, like Dutch urbanism. They think like in categories of these placemaking parameters that you can see second. This placemaking parameters actually was created by the organization Project for Public Spaces. This organization is from the USA, and they create placemaking diagram. I will show you it next. Like this is placemaking diagram, and then I will tell you about it. And I use a little bit different parameters, because I talk only about spatial. When I talk about space and about space dimension, I talk only about spatial and physical parameters, because in placemaking they also take into account some sociability and some social parameters, and about gender equality, or I don't know, some volunteering. They also take into account in these placemaking parameters. And it's too much information, and it's not only about space, and it's about people also. And if we divide measurements into 3 dimensions, like economy, place, and people, it's easier to get special parameters like concrete category. So, and let's talk about this placemaking diagram. Dutch urbanism use only central part with sociability, uses and activities, access and linkage, and comfort and image. And they don't concretize a lot what they mean in these categories, but you can use this placemaking diagram for the project for public spaces, community and to understand what they include in these things. I can share with you this booklet, maybe later or maybe in our group, and you can read what means in every category and how they measure it. They don't tell a lot about how they measure, but sometimes in some stuff you can think in their own, like property values. We have told you about, we were talking with you about economic parameters, and we talked about property values and rent rates for the commercial spaces or for private spaces in the area, and this all about property values. And if we talk about mostly the transit usage, it's maybe more about people in my presentation, but Dutch urbanism and placemaking, they use it in just in whole diagram of all measurements which you can use in public spaces. So if we speak actually about space and actually about physical parameters and actually about spatial dimension, you can use these four, like greening and water, amenities, activities, and comfort. I will explain a little about what is it. Greening and water. Sorry, I will see the chat. You don't hear me? It's better now? Okay,
I can
yeah.
hear you perfectly.
I'm hear you very good.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Greening and water, it's like urban vegetation, and every tree, every flower in your area, you need to count them, and you need to understand if they're good or if there are perennials which which you don't need to plant every year, or is there some plants that you need to plant every year and to spend money and to spend time and to spend someone's work to do this job, or it's perennials that you plant one time and for several years. And all the things you need to take into account. Water, it's like good stuff that you can use if you have some river banks or if you have some lakes in your area or near your area. You can use it like attractive point where which people can use and why people will came to this place. And if you measure it, you can use mapping. Mapping, it's like a pointing on map, just on some map. I can share with you this website where you can take these maps, which you can use for your mapping, and you just can make all these marks on your map to show some greenery or to show some water amenities or to mark some river banks on the area with which you work. Next thing is amenities. Amenities is like all the stuff which makes this place comfortable or uncomfortable, like pathways, like sidewalks, like pedestrian crossing, which can be comfortable, safe, or not comfortable and unsafe. And all the things you need to mark on the map, or not on, maybe not on the map. You can take a photo, you can categorize and take this data in any way which is comfortable for you. But you need all this stuff taken into account. And amenities, it's all the things that I don't know, like infrastructure, all the infrastructure, and all the infrastructure not only for walking, but also for, I don't know, like playgrounds, but playgrounds and more activities, but sometimes you can make it into amenities, or like, I don't know, pedestrian crossing. Yeah. And activities, it's like playgrounds, sports grounds, some summer cinemas, some amphitheaters, every stuff that you can use, that people can use for the activities in your place. And you also need to map them or to write like in Excel or some table when you can understand which amenities you have and which place of activities you have. Or it can be also playgrounds for dogs, I don't know, something like that, which can bring people here because of some activities. And comfort, it's a category when you need to mark every uncomfortable or comfortable things, like benches. Benches is a good thing which people use, like some I don't know, some I don't know, uncomfortable crossing or some garbage on your place, or you understand, some things that makes this place comfortable or uncomfortable. Like maybe coffee shop will be your amenities or will be your comfort stuff, because a lot of people use it and because it's really comfortable to take coffee and to sit here and drink this coffee. And all the things you need to place on the map if it's comfortable for you mapping, or to place it, it's like some Excel tables where you can take them into account and understand that you have all the stuff, and on each thing you need to mark, are they good or not good? Are they have high quality or not high quality? And then you understand which things you need to improve. Or maybe on your place you have some bad lighting and it's very dark in this place, and people don't use this place because it's very dark and they feel unsafe. And you need to mark all the things to understand which things which stuff you need to improve. Okay, I will share with you this placemaking booklet. So you will see this diagram and you will see how they characterize every part, and you will understand which is good and which is not good. Yeah. And the final thing I want to tell about space, and the space dimension is about spatial and physical parameters, not social. I have told you that you need to understand the clear borders between social and spatial, between social and physical parameters. And when you talk about the space, you work with some material things. You can work with, I don't know, with noise. You understand that comfort, it's also about noise, and it's about very high temperature in the place, because it's always on the sunlight, or it's very windy on the place. You need to measure it and you can measure it. Yeah. And when we speak about space, it's about all these physical parameters and spatial parameters. And the other things is the perception of the space depends on the observer and his or her experience. When I have visited Europe 2 or 3 years ago for the first time. And before I visited Europe, I thought that a lot of Ukrainian streets are quite good and they are very comfortable. And that is okay when cars moving with the speed of 70 or 80 or 100 kilometers per hour. And in Spain, it was my first country I visited. I understand that it's very unsafe and it's very uncomfortable, and the space can be another. So our experience influences a lot on how we perceive the space, because we are observers, and some stuff we can write as very comfortable because we think that there is no another way. But you need to be more critical to with your perception to understand that your perception is more objective and it's more critical and clear, and it's not only your perception, it's for more people, for a lot of people, and for different people. You need to be very critical with your perception and with your point of view on some space or some amenities or some comfort or uncomfort scenes. Yeah, I think it was the last. Yeah, the last thing is task. Is anyone alive still? On the, yeah,
Yes.
I see Sergey and Daniel. Great. Yeah. Okay. We can do this task if you want, or if you want to try it to use this special characteristic. Yeah.
Oksana, I think it can be our home task, and of course,
Okay.
as we will implement our first workshop about measuring the space this Sunday, we can use this diagram. And also, I want to ask you to share this methodological diagram in our chat, and maybe our German participants also can work with their yard, and after we will use Miro board, and we will compare our short and our small measurings.
Okay, okay. I will explain a little about this task. You've seen this 4 categories like sociability, uses and activities, comfort and image, access and linkages. And when you will do this task, you just need to think about your space in these categories and to think if your place have good uses and activities or have no uses and activities, if it have good access and linkages or not, and just write it and maybe a few sentences about why you think in such way, what comfort and image you find in your place or you didn't find in your place. And that will be your task, and in that way it will be your step to understand your place and to make first measurements. Sorry, to make first measurements, first spatial measurements about this place. Yeah, and you can think also about how you can map these things you wrote on some mapping. I will share now with you. After end of the presentation the site where you can take the map. And this is the end of this webinar. I wish you to use your imagination and measure everything, because it's really important and it helps you arguing why your position is right. Yeah, and it can be very important with governments, with activists, with your stakeholders when you measure everything.